Welcome back, everybody. We spent a day working in the shop today, and there's the firewood truck heading in with the last little bit of firewood that come off from that job there. So I don't know if he's putting it in this pile or what pile, but yeah. So the old tipped over Kenworth. I mean, it's situations like this where it's not about the things, it's about the driver in there, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's discussed this, but like, I mean, the guy's got kids and grandkids. That's what's important in situations like this. So she was tipped over, and then they was talking to Jeremy. They popped the drive shaft out of her so it could get towed and nothing would get messed up in there. So I mean, yeah, she's in rough shape, but what are you gonna do? So yeah, she ripped the top open. This old trailer here has been through a lot. It's an older trailer, an older truck. I mean, that's about, what do? You know, that's about it. Older trailer, older truck. This is the truck. That's the hub that just went out of it. Remember that video there where the bolts broke and this had one bolt in it? That's the hub and the new rims that just got replaced. That's why they're brand new retreads on her. So yeah, this is that trailer, but she's a little twisted up. They did unload about 3/4 of the load of chips out of it with a skid steer to get it flipped back up because there's so much weight obviously on this side. So she's still got a few chips left in her. You can kind of see the roof's all be-jangered up. I'm just glad everyone's okay. You know what I mean? Like, it could have been real bad. Real bad. License plate's still half on there. So this is a trailer that's been repaired, obviously. The head fixed. That top cut, I think we're going to discuss this once. That's a buncher head went through there. A guy a while back was driving it, drove in the landing, and the buncher was sitting there, and for some reason he had a brain fart and cut the corner way too short and put a hole in the side of it with the head of the buncher. So that's the story behind that. So that's why there's a patch in there, and it had a hole in it. Yeah, it's pretty interesting in here because there's not a lot of room. There's just a little, and this is all pooched in the back. The dash is coming into you, and it's almost into the steering wheel. And so that's kind of the dealio with this. The CB's still good. That antenna's still good. So we're getting lots of parts already. But yeah, I'm sure it wasn't. I mean, I could barely fit in here. So, little driver, and but I wouldn't have wanted to be in that situation. You know what I mean? And under here, she's got some troubles. There's always noises. Probably a coon in there or something. But could be some cat troubles in there, but I still think that this cat would run better than a Cummins. Just joking. Everybody relax. But no, the engine's seen better days. She's pretty tore up. But yeah, it's worse on that side, but we'll go over there. Let's see. I don't know if I can see anything over here or not. Probably not. Oh. No. Not too bad. The old Kenworth. So, this truck, the history behind this truck. So, this was the first truck, and I think the only truck that Lacey ever drove for history purposes. When we were dating, I'm talking a long time ago, Mike bought this truck, and he took me for a ride in it, and then Lacey went for a ride, and she could not shift, so Mike had to for her, and this was the only semi she ever drove. So she's, yeah. When I started here, this was the truck. You know how y'all have that, everybody, has that truck that's like a really nice one? This was it. This was the Blue Kenworth that Carl drove was the really nice truck, and her days have come to an end. So that's the history on it. Lacey drove the truck. I rode it when it was brand new. That was a long time ago. So that's kind of the history on this old girl. There's a lot of stories. This is the truck that got pushed into me when I was running skidder and the throttle was froze. Was this truck. There was moving the chipper. This truck was getting pushed down a 2-track, and the CB didn't work apparently. And I was in the trail I was in the landing, and the trail kind of drove through the landing. And the old John Deere throttle was froze up, which that was a problem with those things in the winter. And when it froze up, you can't do anything, so I got out, and I would usually go work it for 15 minutes, and then it would come out of it. But the problem was, I got in the trail, the skidder was pushing the chipper, because the chipper was hooked to this truck, and pushed it right into my grapple, and just annihilated that hood. So that's some more history on this truck. And boy, that driver was just cussing and swearing. He wasn't mad at me, he was mad at the guy pushing it, but that was one of those deals. What do you do? But this was the truck. I mean, it was clean and nice and pretty. Now it's not so clean and nice and pretty anymore. So this is a 50-foot chip van. So here's the thing, is like obviously your box is junk, which is what happens. What happens in these type of situations. I loaded that quick. Is you just rip the box off, and then you add 3 more foot on the frame, and then you build a new box. So that's actually happened to, I think we've done it to 150-footer. And then we have, like those ones out there are brand new built 53-footers. So on these 50-footers, I mean, you're looking at all the axles are fine, the frame's fine, it's just your box is junk. So you'll actually just put a 53-foot box on here, you send the frame out, and away you go. That's how it works. But the old Blue Kenworth, the old number 2, this actually had one time propane hooked up to it. This had the wet kit on it. It would run low boy, and there was actually a propane tank that sat right here and injected propane in there. And yeah, so at one time this had a little juice to her, and she had the power. But yeah, and here's something that I have never told anybody. I don't know if Mike even knows, but the guy that was driving at that time, he's since passed away. But he had the propane tank here, and he would get loaded, and while I was loading him, he would get a screwdriver and a crescent wrench, pop the hood, and he would adjust the flow of the propane. And he had it turned up, and then somebody seen it and they turned it back down, and then he turned it back up. He was always fiddling with it in there, you know, one of them drivers, just always fiddling with something. He couldn't sit still. So yeah, she had to, and I mean, this thing had some juice to her when it had the propane. It had some power. He was loaded, passing loaded trucks and doing all that kind of stuff with it. But yeah, so, but again, it's just a hunk of fiberglass and steel is all it is. You know, that's all it really is. So, a little history, and that's what'll happen to that. It was a good truck. First truck that I ever skid to. This showed up my first day working here. We got about a foot of snow. I showed up to work. I run the old 480 Timberjack, and this was the first truck I loaded. Carl showed up first that morning. He was one of the only drivers to show up, it seemed like, in that type of weather, because he would just haul. And lowered him up. I believe it was oak. And she ended with oak. So just keep rolling, everybody.